City of Shelby, North Carolina. First, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and supporting this year's annual Community Math Academy Gala. I learned at a young age that those who aren't convicted by something will fall for anything. So I must first give honor and thanks to God, who's the head of my life. Also like to thank my family for coming and supporting me this evening. My dear, my mother, my aunt, I like to call them my triumvirate of women. My grandmother Lula, my aunt Brenda, my cousin Paul, Calvin, my friends, everyone, thank you for coming. I truly, truly do appreciate the support. I'd also like to take the time to thank my pastor, who is also here tonight, Brother Littlejohn. Thank you for being here. I want to give thanks to the Community Math Academy Gala committee for inviting me. A special thanks to Mr. Holmesley, Ms. McClooney, Mr. Harrell, Mr. Hooker, Mr. Cherry. Thank you all. They played a great role in my life. I remember our first year in 2007 at Mount Calvary when we made it happen. Mr. Corey was reminding me while we were walking around how I still kind of owe him for a little bossing around, I guess. I was a yearbook editor at the time, and I asked him to buy the software, and it was about $300. He was like, "You still owe me that $300." But I do thank you for everything that you've all done. And I just want to take a real quick opportunity to thank a few people who really, really played a major role in my life. Ms. Nelson Feaster, and also Ms. Sherry Sharp. I see Mr. Harris here, who is my principal at Crest, and also Mr. Ledford, who is also the superintendent now at Cleveland County School System. So thank you all. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. Ms. McClooney has given you all the state of the academy, and the Community Math Academy is changing the educational ecosystem in Shelby, North Carolina. But today I want to remind you all of the dire necessity for the Math Academy and give you a little insight on the socio-political tone of Shelby, North Carolina, and hopefully inspire each and every one of you to continue to invest in the Community Math Academy. Hakeem was only 8 years old when he received Student of the Year. He was a stellar reader and computed numbers very quickly. Hakeem had grown tremendously throughout his time in pre-K and during his elementary years. In the 4th grade, Hakeem was crowned spelling bee champion of his school in his county. He was very close to becoming the state champion before stumbling on the spelling of the word eleemosynary. You can only imagine how intimidating that should have been. The kid was a phenomenal student, and his level of intellect was connected directly to a supreme source governing his every thought, absolutely superior. But as Hakeem grew older, his grades began to drop dramatically. He realized that those that he perceived to be his friends were not interested in befriending him. Hakeem was laughed at and called names such as nerd and lame. He was mimicked and bullied. His fear of loneliness began to alter Hakeem's thinking. He started skipping classes with his friends, and he kind of got up in the wrong crowd. Hakeem is a native of Shelby, North Carolina. He joined the gang because if he didn't, he would suffer being beaten up anyway. Eventually, Hakeem dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. The pressures that Hakeem encounters are systemic, and we all recognize them as stereotypes that exist as common behaviors. The value of education for a person in an at-risk community differs tremendously from those in a non-at-risk or in affluent community. Those who are born in affluent communities have parents that are able to help them with their homework because the parents engage in intense stages of professional or corporate fields. However, Hakeem was not privileged to those types of resources. You see, Hakeem was a product of an underrepresented community. Hakeem's family were diligent in equipping him with the best opportunities and resources that they could afford. But the job market left his mother unemployed while his father worked double day shifts. Despite both of Hakeem's parents being involved in his life, there are still obstacles presented to Hakeem that he had to overcome on his life journey. Hakeem was given high expectations at the time of his birth. He was expected to compete with those of affluence amid his own school being under-resourced and the city surrounding him not supporting him. Hakeem's educational demise was determined for him before acquiring the capacity of thought to apprehend the metaphors of Shakespeare or Rousseau's classical liberal approach. Oftentimes, students that come from underrepresented communities like Hakeem are labeled problem children before anyone ever takes the time to understand that they were a child prior to ever becoming a problem. A calm and understanding conversation with the student would typically solve those issues. However, the individual must ask the student the right questions, which in return leads to the right answers and determine how the students react. Correct? Y'all still with me? Yes, sir. As a product of the Cleveland County school system, I understand firsthand that I was a difficult student at times. However, there were certain individuals throughout my development that poured into me. Those individuals would reassure me that I was not different or a problem child, and would occasionally give me tips and advice on how to interact with individuals that could possibly anger me. And more than anything, they would give me their unadulterated truth on my actions, ensuring that they held me as a growing student accountable. This is an important exercise that most students can participate in. If certain individuals that I related to and aspired to never grabbed me, pulled me to the side, and had a conversation with me, unfortunately, I must say that I wouldn't be standing in front of you today. But the harsh reality that typically occurs, instead of the student receiving the proper guidance from individuals who he or she will be comfortable speaking with, the teacher either has to place the student's situation to the side in hopes to reprimand the student's behavior after all of the other normal students have received appropriate direction, or send the student to an alternative classroom that further perpetuates his own punishment. This is an example of the brutal and atrocious attacks on both the mind and the spirit that certain students receive, that then reinforces the importance of our community engagement. For almost a decade, the Community Math Academy has been restoring the self-doubt of our youth in the community. Although the aforementioned example may not be the case for most of us sitting in this room, because it is obvious that all of us are committed to education through your commitment in enhancing the Community Math Academy. But there is a dire and serious need for education here in Shelby, North Carolina. Formal education that the students receive just can't be served any old type of way. And this is why the Community Math Academy is different and also necessary. It is imperative that the education we advocate for our students must offer an appetizer of restoration, reaching down into the deep abyss of the student's disbelief and countering that student's pain. The main dish for education must be compassion, a pure love that views the student's potential and the student's present state, realizing that the student is nowhere near where they can possibly be in life, and insisting that he or she excels past their sophomore stage of knowing it all and having it all together. See, this is the beauty in the art of education. There is beauty in the exchange between the educator and the student. Whereas as long as the student and you give yourself to the student, advising her when she did not have the right answer, staying after school when she didn't fully understand the problem, it becomes necessary for the development of the overall student. The student's life's achievement becomes a reflection of what our city is able to produce, and this becomes your receipt. It's your trade-off. It's the return on your investment. And it is a possibility that the development of one student may establish a regimen for solving mishaps with the student or any other student in the future. Restoring one student's self-assurance may save thousands of lives. Being compassionate enough to see the person past their current misunderstanding may help that student to construct a piece of legislation in the future that has a remedy with great efficacy. Pledging yourself to education displays the endless possibilities with learning. It grants you insight, it promotes positivity, and helps you to appreciate the exchange that you'll encounter with students. Hakeem was not reminded of these three positive aspects of education. He needed someone to restore his faith in the process when times became difficult at school and at home. He was looking for a few compassionate individuals that commended him in both his triumphs and shortcomings, treating both acts just the same. More than anything, he needed reciprocity to ensure the fluidity of his life. individuals that will offer their unbiased advice regardless of his current situation. What Hakeem needed was educational reassurance. Yes, educational reassurance is what Hakeem needed as a remedy for his unbelief. If the purpose of education is to enhance the moral tutelage of a person, then that person will eventually realize the authentic value of education. In 1872, capitalizing on the opportunity to unshackle the world from mental slavery, Booker T. Washington founded the Hampton Institute. His passion for education was so adamant that he knew the pathway to restoring the status of former slaves would begin with advocating for his community to cast down their buckets and invest in their future. Born in 1962 in a blue-collar household in Detroit, witnessing her father work 3 jobs while her mother cooked, cleaned, and raised her family, Rosalind Brewer, with the collaboration of scholarships, loans, and her father's sacrifice, would go off to Spelman College and earn a degree in chemistry. She would then accept a job as a full-time scientist with the Kimberly-Clark Corporations. They made Kleenex and Bounty quicker picker-uppers, where she would work for 22 years while gaining 3 advanced degrees from prestigious institutions from across this great nation. In 2012, Rosalind Brewer was named president and CEO of Sam's Club. These are 2 examples of monitoring and adapting to one's circumstances within 2 different time periods. If these individuals were able to adapt to their situations to strategically tailor their success in the midst of their plight, then the same can be done today. The time to make a difference has arrived. Our gathering this evening signifies the work ethic that has been applied to creating change. The Community Math Academy recognizes and incorporates in all endeavors, all major components in ensuring the success of all their students. The students, educators, parents, and the community. All of these individuals play an integral role in helping our students getting from point A to point B. These students are yearning for their minds to be stretched, similar to a canvas that waited for Michelangelo, a tennis court that waited for a Serena Williams, a blank page that waited for a W.E.B. Du Bois, or better yet, a group of students that are struggling with math who waited for a Ron Harris, a Richard Hooker, a Larry Kruger, a Gordon, a Haywood Holmes to be implemented. And lastly, these same students who are committed to this idea of education is waiting for each of you to make a distinct and indispensable investment in their lives. Because once these students' minds are stretched by a new experience, a new concept, a new understanding, their minds will never return to its old dimension. So it is important that we censor the information that they are procuring. Yes, it must be regular. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all of the networking tools. But we must realize that these create false identities associated with social media outlets. And it causes a false reality for many of our students. Whatever social media apparatus should be used in moderation. There should be no reason for an individual sitting on their bed to be on Instagram for 2 to 3 consecutive hours, invested in someone else's life. We must discipline them to create their own lives, instead of allowing Instagram to construct this idea, this notion of beauty, because a community, we fail to remind them that they are beautiful. These hypersensitive realities that we try to sweep under the rug are serious, and they are affecting the lives of our students now and today more than ever. Instead of our students spending their leisure time creating Instagram, they could be creating more software and technology that not only save lives, but save some. This is what we need. We cannot allow these intentionally constructed distractions to detour them from their success that lies ahead of them. The goal of our community is to challenge their minds. Whether you require them to go outside and help in the garden, whether you assign them a new book to read, the ultimate goal is to furnish an idea of completing a task. The repetition and discipline of reading a book and completing it, planting a garden and watching it grow, building a gingerbread house from scratch, teaching them the importance of learning their multiplication table, So once they are older, they can then apply their prior knowledge, another achievement, to solving extended pedigrees of derivatives